A show that belongs to you, a show that belongs to me, a show that belongs to our two co-hosts. Gentlemen, joining us by the power of the internet, we figured we might just have a conversation a little bit earlier than usual because we've got a couple of things to discuss all the way down in beautiful Cape Town. We've got Schalk Brits. Scholar, how are you doing this morning?
Renier, I'm actually doing fantastic. I'm actually in George at the moment. As you can see, there's a mountain behind me, so all good.
Which course at Fan Court are you playing this week?
No, you must ask which course is he not playing, right? Not which course is he playing. How many courses is he playing in one day?
That's also his only work shirt that he packed just for the podcast, so it looks like he's on a work trip. Always good to have you joining us as well, Mr. Gcobani Bobo. Burbs, fireworks behind Scholar. Jeez, look at you go. Burbs, it's good to see you, my man. All well?
Yeah, I'm good. Johannesburg has been gloomy, not just the result of the weekend, but it's just been gloomy. It's been overcast. I think Mother Nature is swelling up on top of Johannesburg in September. Never heard of like cold winter days. But with all of that said, I am looking forward to catching up with you, gents.
Also today, joining us, one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. I might change my opinion after the show. And seems to have lost a bet because he's wearing a Manchester United jersey. Bryan Habana joins us for episode 8. Bryan, how are you doing this morning?
Renier, so good to be here. Good to know that you have done your research. The only reason I'm wearing my Manchester United top is because you would have known if you'd gone just on Wikipedia and searched Bryan Habana. I'm named after Brian Rockton and Gary Bailey, so I thought very apt for the 8th episode of The Good, The Bad and Rugby South Africa to at least come on with my namesake, even though it has been a 2-1-2 start to the season. 2-1-2 being the record that Manchester United's got in the Premier League, just if you were wondering.
Thank you very much. Consummate professional. Gentlemen, it's been a tough week in South African rugby, especially in Joburg in South African rugby. The Lions going down in the last minute by the boot of Jordan Hendrickson, which we'll get to in a little bit. But late on Saturday night, South African time, it caught a bunch of South Africans by surprise. Banger of a start by the Boks. And I know that we've discussed this, and it's not necessarily a thing of we want to win every game. We know what the structure is, but then we go down to the Pumas. It's a tough kind of game for us to unpack. There's a lot that's been said on social media, and I want to get your opinions on it as well. But first, let's start with the notes for the game. What did you think? What were your ideas? What is your immediate reaction, Scholar?
For me, Renier, it was unfortunately that we lost the game. If Manie kicked over the kick, we wouldn't have been so bleak in South Africa. But to start off like a house on fire, a couple of turnover tries, and we said last week that the Argentinian side is hard to play against. They got to the semi-finals, they beat Australia, they beat New Zealand away from them. It's a good side. And so from that perspective, it was not surprising that they pushed us to the end. We had the opportunity, we missed out. But for me, as I said, if we're going to start playing this attacking style that we're trying to play, we will give away turnovers. We will make us vulnerable from a defensive perspective. People are mentioning the whole time that we are slipping tackles. With the way we defend, we are going to slip tackles. But with time, we'll adjust and we'll be better for it. We gave people more. We created more depth this week, and we were put under pressure. And Bryan can speak about this later. It is hard to go and play in Argentina, and that's a great learning curve, and I think we're better for it.
Yeah, I just thought, first of all, Argentina just came up with a proper plan. I think how they sort of done their analysis on us. I love the fact that they didn't want to go into set pieces. They kicked the ball out. Gave South Africa nothing to tackle unless they were on the attacking sort of part of the field, which they done very well. Thought that sweeping around and attacking us from almost like a reversed flip to hit the ball, lock up our centers in the midfield. And then after that, making sure that those players who are over-tracking, coming over from the racks, they can expose them with the balls back onto the inside. That tactically, I thought that they played that game very well. South Africa will be disappointed because after that 13 minutes, that's when things sort of came off. We had some good set attacks, which were brilliant. I thought the first try, second try, brilliant work. The way that we worked around the corner, cleaners being so accurate of getting and protecting our ball, and we're getting quick ball. But then things sort of started losing momentum. We started losing our sequencing. We didn't have the right players into clearing out players making decisions, getting isolated. And I thought Argentina, the way that every time they got themselves in a scoring position, they took their chances. Scoring 4 tries in that first half with every entry that they got into the 22 was a well-executed game plan and gave South Africa nothing. So there was no energy that we could get from our defense because half of the time we were tracking so far behind the defensive line that there was dog legs and opportunities, and they're very elusive in the way that they run. Their runners, good skill set, but a well-executed game plan from them. Yes, we still had a chance to win it. I think from the 50th minute, we never scored a point, which is it's going to be alarming to think about what we do bring, the energy we bring from our bomb squad, and not to get any result from that.
Mr. Habana, before we break it down into too much detail, your overview.
Yeah, I think this team has definitely given us such a sense of hope and I want to say self-belief in their ability to win games. And I think, if one looks at the context of the game, the 17-0 sort of head start we got was very much down to a shoddy, mistake-ridden, Argentina in the first 15 minutes, from that first line-out. But to Bob's and Sculler's point, the one thing you can't do is write off an Argentinian side, and the manner in which they picked themselves up, showed composure, whatever they're doing under Philippe Contamponi as head coach now, who's brought in a wealth of coaching expertise, playing expertise, having been in France, Europe, Ireland, and what he's achieved as a player, and transcending that into his coaching capabilities. Yes, as South Africans, bitterly disappointed that we weren't able to pull it off. I do think, the vilifying of Manie Libbok is unjust and unheard of, because if anyone is beating themselves down the most, it's him as a player. And I think to attack the player as a player, and I think myself and Bobs have all been there, attack the player as a player. When you start, becoming racist, when you start becoming demeaning, when you start doing things like that. And, social media has definitely given keyboard warriors, faceless keyboard warriors, an easy opportunity to attack. And no one will be hurting more than someone like Manie. And this team would have hurt. And, Rassie said post the game, it hurts purely because of the standards they've set. And unfortunately, Manie was the last opportunity for us to win it. But I don't think the game was lost there. Our lineout was struggling to actually fire. The missed tackles that we had on defense was very much counter to what we got to become used to with the Springbok side. So disappointing, a massive learning curve, but it's because of the high expectations that this team firstly puts on themselves. And as South Africans, what we've been able to get from them over the last 5 years of Rassie being in charge. That being said, you've got to applaud what the Argentinians did. I think the manner in which they scored their tries, despite a rusted edge, despite being put under pressure, to sort of have that dishwasher effect, coming from the outside in, the way their hands, the slickness of their agility and the pace at which they were attacking the ball. Bob said, four entries into our 22, 4 tries, and, all of a sudden the game is quickly churned. So, yeah, definitely didn't make for an easy night's sleep on Saturday. But like everything, the sun did come up on Sunday morning. We're all still alive. We're all still, enjoying beauty, Schalk potentially more golf beauty than the rest of us. And they'll know now they've got an opportunity this weekend at the Mbombela Stadium to go do something special and win a rugby championship for the first time since 2019. So it's going to be tough, disappointed, but that's life. Some you lose, some you win, but it's how you pick yourself up and respond.
Sculler, a couple of things that's important to me, at least, looking at the Bok game. I said a couple of weeks ago that we might face a victory lap of Argentina. We're just going there to kind of collect the crown and come back. That doesn't seem to be the case. And I mean, going to Argentina is historically very tough. It's a tough place to go and play. It's a tough place to go and impose yourself on the Argentinians, knowing that they have an opportunity for the first time to beat the big three in the rugby championship all in one go, collect the full set. They were fully charged for it. Do we kind of look at that game and say, as we said at the start of the series, before the 2 Australia games even, you mentioned that for now we have to, winning is not the most important thing for this Bok team. The system works of getting to a World Cup. It's a 4-year cycle. It's about finding combinations, giving new players the opportunity to go and play, having players experience pressures in different ways. And the South African public shouldn't get themselves tied to a win or a loss too much. Bryan alluded to it. Social media has been an absolute pit of vitriol towards Manie Libbok, which I mean, I can only say that it's complete garbage and shouldn't happen. But that's the nature of playing for the Boks, isn't it? I mean, you are going to face a bit of criticism. Give me your thoughts on what you've seen around Manie Libbok over the past 48 hours.
Bryan alluded to it. It is he will be disappointed. The team will be disappointed in the loss. But the bigger picture here, I would say, is he Russ exposed players in a very hostile environment. To go to Argentina, it's like any team coming to South Africa. And for me, Manie is a great talent. The question is how do we build him up? How do we support him in days like this? Because in South Africa, we always say, well, if Sasha played or Hunter was still on the pitch, we have to look at the whole picture of it. Yes, we missed tackles. The two things that I'm extremely proud of, there was still a lot of physicality and there was a great work ethic. First, and thirdly, we have to look at Argentina. They are with Ante Contepomi. He's done wonders for them. They've got great talent. They're a great team. They're not just, they went to New Zealand and beat New Zealand at home. They gave, what was it, 67 or 63 or 27, something. They gave Australia a whipping. So firstly, if you take away the expectation that the second-rated side, okay, first, then, okay, we're playing there. It's a hostile place. We did make a lot of changes this weekend. We gave exposure to the players. The big thing is, do we want always the short-term results, or do we want to look at the depth and what's going to come in 3 or 4 years' time? And that's what I said previously. We are better for this. The thing is, if you lose, you keep on winning, you stop evolving. I still think with this, we are evolving as the matches go on. Well, we lose some matches, but we'll win. We'll maybe lost this battle, but we'll win the war eventually in 4 years' time. We are still, this weekend, we've got the opportunity to win the Tri-Nations or the Old Champions Cup. So from that perspective, I think it's phenomenal where we're going.
Can I just say, sorry, Schalk, whoa,
not the Champions Cup.
Sorry, Champions Cup, Tri-Nations. Oh my word! Renier, what are we? Sorry, Schalk. Are you trying to get to your tea time at in like 20 minutes?
No, I'm actually in the office today.
Oh my word!
The Rugby Championship. I couldn't get on the name.
Did you say Tri-Nations?
I said like the old Tri-Nations. The Rugby Championship.
That's was. But Schalk, I want to say on that, right? And we're all now, obviously, everyone is laying into Manie, and he'll be the person first accountable to. And it wasn't just, I mean, it was that kick to touch that he kicked directly into the dead ball area, and then the missed penalty. Handré Pollard also missed a kick, and again, Handré did have 4 kicks. He only missed 1, and percent-wise better. Argentina, Thomas Albanos missed 3 kicks. So effectively, they were 8 points better than us had he got all his kicks, right? And now all of a sudden, Argentina win. No one actually thinks of the 8 points that Argentina missed at point, at goal. Sport is brutal. And, when you get paid a lot of money to be playing in a national team representing your country, you are going to get critique. And I think critique is fine if you attack the player for whatever happened. But as soon as you start the undertone of racial slurring, of things that are unfortunately demeaning from a personal character perspective, that's where I then throw my toys out the cot. For someone like Manie, we were the highlights reel of that Scotland game and that cross kick to Currie Cup. South Africans were jumping for joy and telling how beautifully Manie Libbok is controlling a game in which Springboks went for 5 tests under his sort of guidance, towards a World Cup quarterfinal and semi-final. And now all of a sudden, the worst player in the world. So I've been there 100%, and it becomes really difficult when you understand the effort that players put in to be at that point, and the vilifying when you start attacking a person for their nature and not their ability becomes absolutely ridiculous.
I'm more interested, Bryan, going through a sort of so-called slump, or when things are not going well. How does someone sort of, because you played more than enough test matches to sort of bounce back, come back, stay in form and do all of that. What is the thing that Manie sort of goes to as part of his solitude now?
Well, it's quite often who's the best coach I played under? And best becomes really subjective, right? Is it Jake White, who goes on to win the Tri Nation in his first season, win a World Cup? Peter de Villiers, who went on to beat New Zealand in New Zealand 2 years in a row, win a British Lions. Heineke Meyer, the first Springbok coach to, also African coach to win a Super Rugby competition back in 2007. Alistair Tixia, which is getting from back to winning a Currie Cup after more than a decade. I thought people, the best coach is the one that selected me. Played in 2010 when I was having an absolutely horrendous period for a while. I came down to Cape Town, had a brilliant Super Rugby competition, and as a collector, the Boks was struggling, and I got caught in this downward spiral. I'll never forget sitting in Bloemfontein. I was thinking a few stuff happening in my personal life, but I didn't want to share with the public. There was a few things that no one knows you're going through. Now you're having to be strong mentally, physically, with all this different pressure. And I'll never forget going to Peter de Villiers, and I said, Coach, listen, given everything that's happened, I had a very poor game against Australia and Victoria the week before, went in Bloemfontein. I said, Coach, listen, I don't think you're going to select me this week. I just think I need a bit of a break. And Peter started laughing, and the Peter de Villiers, manager was laughing. I was like, no, Coach, you're hearing what I'm saying. Like, this is like, and I'm being real with you. And he's like, Bryan, listen to me. Firstly, you don't have a choice of if you get selected or not. To a discussion like this, it's going to be much easier for me to select you in the starting 15 and replace you even before half time than what it would be to drop you and select you at any point going forward. And I sat there dumbstruck listening to incredibly wise words from someone who could have easily, under all the pressure he was to drop me, could have dropped me. And I can, in my honest opinion, say right now, if Peter de Villiers hadn't backed me in 2010, I would have never played 100 test matches for South Africa. Never ever. So, I think you look at players and how we subjectively say what the best coach is and who got the best out of you. Peter de Villiers believed in me when no one else did. Jake White selected me out of obscurity. Heineke Meyer, when he came back in 2012, was under massive pressure to go select someone like Bjorn Besson, who was playing pretty well. So for me, the best coach is the one that selects you. And I think for someone like Manie, and again, every person's unique journey and path is different. For me, it was going back to the basics sometimes, because you get in this motion of potentially trying too hard, and it's almost simplifying things in the chaos that is happening around you. For me, going back to work with Dr. Cheryl Calder from a hand-eye visual perspective, and what we were doing in the 2007 Rugby World Cup, and every time it went well, and then potentially thought I got too big for my boots, and I stopped doing iGym or stopped visiting Cheryl. So there were certain things I do believe in these moments of despair, distraught, having a network around you that can positively criticize, not to break you down, but to build you up, not to criticize you as a person, but to help you build where you need to build, becomes extremely important. Reverting back to basics, Bob, was a really key point for me. But having, I want to say, the sounding boards around you that understand you firstly as a person, understand sometimes you just need to be quiet and lay in your girlfriend or your wife's arms and not talk to the world, and having those in your network in a brutal world where, faceless keyboard warriors, can attack you with whatever, means they have. So, I'm hoping that for someone like Manie, it's been great to hear Rassie say, it wasn't, yes, Manie is accountable for missing the kick, but they didn't lose the game because of Manie. And I think when you have that backing, that support, firstly from the coaching staff, it definitely helps. But, it's a tough mountain to climb. And hopefully Manie, has that environment around him that will see him become successful, because, when you win URCs and you win big games, Manie kicked the absolute stunner from the corner on the left-hand corner in the URC final 2 years ago against the Bulls. And all of a sudden we're saying he can't kick a ball. So yes, when that is your job, you need to do it. Unfortunately, when you're under the microscope, it's a lot easier to criticize, but hopefully Manie does have that immediate support system around him, that'll help him, become one of the best, that South Africa has, because we need a good Manie Libbok, right? Yes, Sasha's there, yes, Andre's there, but Andre's also got, he's not as sprightly and as young as he used to be. So Andre maybe has 3-4 years, but who comes next. And I think Manie definitely has the capability to make a 10 jersey his own.
I don't know the stats, right? So if he's got the 10, the kicking responsibility, what is his percentage currently? Because surely then that's when you look at the percentage and you go, okay, fine, he is such a talent. Isn't there someone else that can take it over till he gets the confidence back? Because I think he's got the skill, he is a phenomenal player. That just influences his play. So how can you make sure that you give him confidence as a coach and as a rugby player to go out there and play like what he sees? Because I can remember while talking about golf, for example, but throwing in, if you start losing 2 or 3 in the bounce, it hits your confidence. And unfortunately, in with throwing in, you're a hooker. That's your primary job. So you try to focus on that, and actually your team around you pulls you in. But from a kicking perspective, what do you do if you're Rassie and his percentage? I don't know exactly what his kicking percentage was this season, because how do you build that back up to him taking a responsibility again?
Yeah, so according to the SuperSport website Scala, Manie Libbok currently, before the start of this year's Test match series, was sitting at a 72.6% ratio in comparison to someone like Sasha and Andre sitting at 85.7 and 82.2 respectively. That was pre the test this year. So, I mean, a 13 percentage swing in a kicking ratio is pretty intense.
Yeah.
Again, if we look at when we played against France in 2022, there was also the kicking woes. We lost the game against Ireland because of our kicking to poles. And then you had Cheslin, Faf, Damien, and Andre kicking to poles, in that game in Marseille in 2022. And then we had 100% accuracy. And the week before, so it's, is it a perfect science? I don't know. You might have, again, I was horrible at kicking, so we might actually have to get someone like Mornay Steyn on this podcast to actually give more. And Schalk, don't tell me you can kick for poles. Bobs, I will still back, but Brits, there's no chance.
Schalk looked very ready to say, I can do it, give me the ball, coach.
No, I can, for sure I can kick to post.
There we go, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, stop it.
At least we let the cat out of the bag. Gentlemen, a question I want to ask is, all three of you have been on the spotlight, SuperSport camera in your face after a loss. We're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to learn from this. We're going to take the learnings. We're going to chew on this for a while. It's going to hurt for a while. It's now the cold light of day. What did the Springboks learn from that test in Argentina? Oops.
I think for me, it's the moments that they sort of let go, meaning that there was opportunities where they could have knuckled down, better decision making, pushing Argentina back and all of that. For me, after the 13th minute, when we started playing such good phase play, we almost got to a stage where we were chasing the game on our attack, where we wanted to force the options instead of saying, okay, fine, let's reset again, build momentum, keep the ball as part and be comfortable with the ball, knowing that we're going to stress Argentina out. With the way that Argentina were playing, kicking the ball long makes your forward pack work their socks off, because the offside lines, we know that nowadays, if you don't make any sort of intention of trying to track back and get yourself onside, you are going to get penalized, which we did. It lost, well, I think it was like in the 60th minute or by the time in the second half, when we got caught out from not retreating back. So now you have the forward pack of the Springboks running around, chasing everything, and we're bringing the ball back brilliantly. But I think somewhere we had to manage that game and start plucking away in terms of scoreboard pressure. Argentina, every time they got the opportunity, they made sure that they planted us back into our own half. I think those are the lessons that you sort of pick up. How do we then sort of give ourselves chances where we are making the tackles, because with them not giving lots of ball in hand opportunities, again, I'm making sure that we had 99 tackles attempted throughout the whole game. It just shows you to the tactics of long kicking from Argentina. They really found us out in that way. We were trying so hard to get our team into this attacking sort of space and mindset where we can run, especially from those long kicks. They somehow, when Manie Libbok came on, we started doing like open to the 10 where we kicked contestable kicks. And that sort of got us back into the game because now we're forcing them to make mistakes. They didn't have time and space to kick a long kick back. And that's where we started sort of turning him and churning him into pressure. There's some opportunities that I think we can use with understanding how a team is coming up against us. How do we sort of learn from having our two good defenders, the two centers being trapped in the back at the bottom of the racks, making sure that they're splitting up our centers, because whoever sort of comes off on that has to split and go to the open side and go to as furthest as possible. Then you leave out your best defenders disconnected, the two centers. So a very good tactical sort of play from Argentina. I think for Rassie, when they start looking at this game, I think the intricate detail is what is going to really sort of show up for the players. And I think the learnings in terms of good rugby intelligence of learning how to play in those sort of high tempo situations and pressure situations, those are the learnings I think we can take from it.
Bryan, what did we learn about Salman Morat as a captain? I mean, we've gotten so used to Sia and his charismatic way of leading, and he's got the country behind him, and it's a very emotive topic, Sia Kolisi as a captain, and there's a lot of buy-in from the community and that. Salman Morat as a Springbok captain will go back to this game as well and think, well, I'm going to learn a lot from this as well. It's an opportunity to face the South African press after a difficult week in the saddle. Give me your thoughts on Salman as a leader. We know what he's like as a leader in the community, a leader on the field. What's the differences between him and Sia, and what do you see there?
So, I mean, really just comparing the two's rugby journey, Salman's been in a leadership role from a very young age, through SA school, through SA under 19, and Rassie has spoke fervently about, how incredible leadership capability is. He's taken that on to the Stormers and Western Province. I think what has made the Springbok team really so good over the last 6 years under Rassie is the captain has basically been the person having to do the media interviews, having to do this, but the leadership core in the Springbok team has been of major benefit. And I think, yes, Salman will be head and center in terms of potentially what we see as a lack of leadership in terms of how the game panned out. But, you still had the likes of Evan Esvet coming off the bench, who became, the equal top player in terms of number of tests for South Africa. You had Andre Pollard, Jesse Creel with over 70 odd test matches for South Africa. Lukhanyo World Cup winners across the board. You have provincial captains in there as well. So I do think it will be sort of the leadership group that needs to take a hard look at themselves in terms of, and Bob spoke about, the 99 tackle attempts, of which we were only successful with 64%, which, having if Jacques Nienaber was watching anywhere in the world, he'd be pulling out, he doesn't have any hair left, so he might be pulling other things out. But the Springbok side has prided themselves on their tackle success rate. And I think, someone like Salman in the leadership position that you are, you always learn more about yourself in the defeats. And he'll now need to go have a little bit of self-introspection, self-reflection of where he came short. But he would then also look around his leadership core. The guy who's only captaining South Africa for the third time, you need as much assistance as possible. And I think, as a collective, they'll go back and say, was the messaging clear enough? And, Rassie will be very upfront and apparent in saying, the message, yes, was or not. So the messaging coming onto the field, were we able to execute what we as leaders wanted to do? So, how do you then get, your tackle completion up above 85, 90% like we used to? I missed quite a few tackles in my career in here, and trust me, John Smith and Victor Matfield and all the leaders, John de Villiers, would absolutely lay into me. And that's the captaining style for each and every person. So we can't look at what Sia brought over the last 6 or 7 years and try comparing him and Salman, because there are two totally different characters. You'll understand that he's probably let himself and the team down from a leadership perspective, but he'll also know that he has a strong group around him that also needs to have that self-reflection, which I think is important. So another opportunity, and we'll probably see the likes of, Avini LaRue, Cheslin Colby, Damon Dalendi, Sia coming back this weekend, Peter Setutoy, who I think was maybe lacking in terms of the physical presence. If we I think in Pieter-Steph du Toit's 28 tackles in the Rugby World Cup final in 2023. I don't think the Springboks would have minded those extra 28 tackles this weekend. So tackle success, I think, from a defensive set was what put us under a lot of pressure. We weren't able to springboard off our set phase, the scrums and the lineouts, and even though we got 1 or 2 scrum penalties, we weren't as clinical of our set phase attack, which I think, with those older heads in play, a little bit more consistency in terms of the combinations, we might see a massive change. And if we can take anything from this game, score 17 points in under 14 minutes against Argentina in Argentina, just shows the quality that the side has. And you then put in a better tackle completion rate. You then put in set phase completion and things that will basically be positively impactful for this team. Don't think it's doom and gloom, right? Like the Springboks team is still the team with the highest win percentage this year, the most successful team currently. And yes, we've lost the number 1 spot to Ireland, which we're all confused about. I think this sort of ranking system is very much to rugby as to what the Duckworth-Lewis method is to cricket, right?
Never has a true word been spoken on this podcast.
You lose like 2 points, and then all of a sudden you lose your ranking to a team that's not even playing. I mean, chief was good. I was good at maths, but even that confuses me.
Can I talk to me about going to the Lowveld? A game that could have been a bit of a dead rubber. Now, look, in all eventuality, all the ship will be back on course by next weekend, and we'll celebrate being champions of the Rugby Championship. Can Argentina beat us twice in a row?
I don't think so, but stranger things has happened. I think it's all part of the bigger plan, guys. I think if we beat that, there was nothing there for the last game. So it is part to make sure that Nelspruit is full, that it's the last game to play for. But on Bob's points previously that I want to say is the teams that we struggled from technically is the teams that we had more kicking meters versus running meters, right? So if you take Wales, you take France, and you take what Argentina has done, and fair play to Gcobani, that is one of the things that is hard to you get space to run in. They kick it long. We are now the teams has changed their view of how they play against us, except France. They kick long. And our viewpoint now in South Africa, and definitely the team it looks like, is being more tech orientated. And it's all about momentum and energy. So now you score 3 tries, off you go. You think this specific strategy is working because you scored 3 tries. But eventually it is hard to change defensive mindset towards attacking mindset. And then for me, it's the one thing we should learn is how to consolidate, then go back to almost our normal structure and start playing the percentage game within the second half. Or when things are not going your way, how do you change things around? Well, I think that is the one thing that I think we've learned from this game is if we get the momentum and we're scoring tries, but they are playing a different strategy or a strategy that isn't working currently and they're getting momentum back, how do we start then playing a bit more conservative, play more off 9, that they can't kick so deep, play the percentages and not just the attacking style. So that's the thing that I hope we've learned from this game. And more importantly, we gave people under high pressure, a very hostile environment, we gave them exposure. And if we play our full 15 or our best 23, and that's hard to determine as well, then it might have been a different result. But the guys got exposure there, and we're going to be better for it when we play again, when it's crunch time, I think.
Is that purely from your own commercial perspective, Schalk, just to make sure that you can talk as much from, and then so obviously Leopard Creek.
I was about to say Leopard Creek, that needs to happen.
Leopard Creek, and then once Schalk, have you got 4 appearances on Saturday around the stadium?
Family time, guys. Family time. I'm having a nice weekend with the kids, watching rugby at home. So I can't wait.
Probably speaking engagements in Cape Town. Let's carry on to
Don't confuse me for Bryan. Don't confuse me for Bryan.
Let's talk about the Australia-New Zealand game, and I take a lot of delight in saying that they're competing for the wooden spoon at the moment. It almost had the same sort of setup as the Boks. New Zealand got away to a cracker. I remember watching the first 15 minutes, and I thought, geez, the Wallabies have the best seat in the house. The All Blacks are back. They're playing proper All Black rugby. This is going to be wonderful. Will Jordan cutting it up from all angles. D-Mac looked a little bit more like his Super Rugby self. Caleb Clark looked strong on the carry. And then, yes, they got away with the win at the end, but there was a moment at about the 63rd, 64th minute where the Wallabies knocked the ball on, and they went on to score the try, and ref called them back. And I think to myself, and I can't shake the belief that had the Wallabies scored that try, they could have done a number on the ABs. I think it's possible. I don't think they're the same ABs as we've seen in the past. Give me your thoughts on the game. Australian rugby, they could have maybe gotten something out of this rugby championship. Now it looks like they're going to have the one win against Argentina all the way through. Can they turn around in the second test against the All Blacks? There's no speak of the Bledisloe coming back to Australia. Now it's purely a pride issue. Bryan, talk to me about the Wallabies. Talk to me about that test. Talk to me about the All Blacks.
I think first, Renier, can we give James Slipper an absolute massive applause. I mean, to become the most clapped. Sorry, you're not going to hear me clapping my hands because of my virtual software, but I'm clapping my hands.
You invested in this software?
No, I wish I was.
Okay, cool. Then we won't plug them. We won't say them.
Although I did buy some NVIDIA stock, so I'm not too difficult at that point, right? But all good.
Look at you go.
And I mean, I was sort of watching the game and getting these messages about saying how horrendous this Wallaby team is. It's the worst Wallaby team we've ever seen. It's going to be a long day. And, for the first 45 minutes, they were chasing ghosts. You talked about Will Jordan, Gabriel Clark, Artie Sevilla was on fine form again. And to really see, I think, a little bit of character. Also, great stat for you all. Joe Smith is now the first Kiwi that has been in charge of the All Blacks to lose his first game against the All Blacks. So Dave Rennie, and who was the other one? Not Joe Smith. What's the Crusaders? Robbie Deans were obviously the first coach.
John Mitchell.
No, John Mitchell didn't coach the Wallabies, did he, Bobs? But well done. Well done on the stat level.
Sorry.
But yeah,
for England.
We never said, just on a point of order, we've never said we're the best prepared podcast in the world.
All Black coach, another All Black coach who coached against the All Blacks was John Mitchell.
Sorry, I was specifically speaking about Australia.
So I was just saying that. Okay, carry on, Bryan. Sorry, Bryan. Carry on.
I think what we did.
At least you didn't say Tri-Nations.
or the Champions Cup. But I think the resilience that we saw in this Australian team in that second half is something that we've probably not seen for a very long time. And you get a feeling that Joe Smith, sort of 3-4 months in, is starting to find something that he could potentially work on. Still a very young group of Australians, even though you now have James Slipper as the most capped Aussie of all time. But I think it has really been apparent, I want to say this rugby championship in particular, the absence of South Africa and potentially now, the Jaguars in Super Rugby. What is that meaning, for Australia and New Zealand rugby? And, the physicality, the imposition of, absolute physical specimens in that, ongoing Super Rugby competition, and the lack thereof has, become detrimental to SANZAR, Southern Hemisphere Rugby. But we did now see inklings of this Wallaby side at least trying to find some form of an identity, because they have unfortunately been lacking an identity since Dave Rennie left, when Eddie Jones came in at the beginning of last year. So a young group that still has a lot to learn. Again, a bounce of a ball or a call here that could have literally made the game go either way. The New Zealand side of old would have probably put 50 or 60 on that Wallaby side with the start they had. So is it a poor reflection of how New Zealand finished, or a great reflection of how Australia, picked themselves up, which I think is important? Joe Smith would know that he's down in the cauldron. I'm picking him and Scott Robinson under massive pressure. But when New Zealand loves rugby, in Australia, rugby union in some counties is the fourth or fifth biggest sport. So a lot more pressure on Joe Smith to try and make something of this Wallaby team in terms of the lack of potential quality he has around the board. But a young group that will need to take the positives from last weekend. Again, a bad start, puts you in a difficult position to win a game. And when you learn those things at test level, hopefully they take that into the back of their heads going forward. And unfortunately now they're literally just playing for pride. So, Renier, I don't know, were you born when the Wallabies last won the Bledisloe Cup?
Yes, I was.
Sorry,
I was.
Two years old
my youthful Don't let my useful skin fool you, Brian. Don't let my skin fool you.
I know,
Look,
but
But it was an episode.
Yeah,
But I was young. I was very young. It's a technicality. Look, I mean, they're in a weird spot at the moment, the Wallabies, and there's been chatter on social media of we need to move the Lions series to South Africa and get a series in front of the fans, or take it to New Zealand, or whatever the case may be. Talk about kicking a man when he's down. Joe Schmidt knows this is not getting any easier. He is facing a very, very tough road for the next couple of years. Work-ons for them. I mean, we've discussed it in the past. They, like you mentioned, in some provinces, it's number 3 or number 4, number 5 sport. They are on the back end of talent acquisition as far as players are concerned. They're not in a competitive, robust competition in the way that South Africa is. What does the road to redemption look like for them, Schala? What are you thinking about Australia in the future?
no, they can't play more golf. Schalk.
I actually listened to Joe Schmidt's chat afterwards, and the one thing I do believe from the World Cup to where they are now is players got hurt at that World Cup. The expectation going into that World Cup, judges on performance, and they didn't perform. And the one thing that you have to change, and that I saw in that team, I was expecting the same as most of us, that New Zealand's going to run away with it. Australia came back and fought back. And the one thing that Joe spoke about is belief. And for me, the one thing is that team doesn't have belief. They almost got there, almost crossed the line. And as you said, with that one try, the result may or may not have been different. But the team is looking like they are gelling. They are getting better as the tournament gets on. They're not getting the results, but they did play better in that particular test match, or the last test match. So for them, it's going belief. From New Zealand perspective, I'm like thinking, what's going on there? They've actually scraped through that game. They could have lost that match. For me, it's once again the old All Blacks that I thought will crush people, and they were so phenomenal in closing down games. That New Zealand side I'm not seeing anymore. And so that's two sides of the coin that I'm seeing. Australia starting to believe that they can compete at this level, and New Zealand is like, well, we don't have a killer instinct anymore.
We get to test things out, and we get to take a loss against Argentina on the chin to a degree and say, well, we're going to win some, you're going to lose some. We've proven that the structure works, that Rassie knows what he's doing and changing the style of play around. Brian's Razor Robinson. It's tough for him because this is not the Crusaders. This is not Super Rugby, and you're not at home every week. What's going through his head at the moment?
Yes, I'd pay a lot of money to try to find that out, Renier. I think, again, probably a coach who possibly should have taken over a while ago already. And given, again, the All Black coaching job is, I know in South Africa it's pretty tough being the Springbok coach, but rugby union and the All Blacks in New Zealand is one of the biggest things there is, right? And I think we talk about getting vilified, from a South African perspective. In New Zealand, if they lose a game, the country might sink. It's that big. So I think for Razor, it's trying to get what worked for the Crusaders under his tenure and try find that in an All Black squad, because it's not going to be the same thing. And what you did at the Crusaders, you can't unfortunately fully imprint onto the All Blacks. And he's now already had a coaching staff member in Leon McDonald leave, within a 3-month period. So there's also been a bit of a constant change, which we know that in the New Zealand strategy of things, that doesn't happen. And he's also facing a lot of heat, a lot of tough decisions that he needs to make. But it is about trying to find within this All Black squad what makes them tick. A phenomenal group of players. There's always talk about should Scott Barrett be captain? Should it be Ardie Sevilla? And there's all this debate as well. Should Damon McKenzie be his 10, or should he put Bowden Barrett in at 10? So there's all these hard decisions he's needing to make. But that's the beauty of being a coach, or unfortunately the downfalls of being a coach, is that if you get those decisions wrong, you get crucified, unfortunately, particularly in a country like New Zealand. So I think unfortunately, this timeline is probably not very big because of the expectation down in New Zealand to try find that success. Graham Henry and his coaching corps that went on to sort of take the New Zealand to that sort of 14-year run. They lost in a quarterfinal of a Rugby World Cup in 2007, yet they became the most dominant team the game has ever seen up until the Springbok group. Between 2011 and 2015, I think they'd only lost 4 games. I mean, that is a phenomenal stat to have, right? But that's with the same group that lost in 2007. So are we judging Razor on this current starting tenor of his All Black career as a coach, or do we give him that time to sort of settle into things? Does he have the caliber and the success rate to be in this position? I definitely believe so. He brings something different, and hopefully he can start resonating with the players in terms of the imprint of what they want to put on the field, because his stats alone from a Crusaders perspective speak for itself. So he's a good man. I know Seth Ali took him to some surfing, here in Cape Town, and he's got some really good friends in South Africa. We love seeing him dancing post the game. So hopefully the joy he brings as a coach is very different to the current New Zealand context. But it is hopefully something that adds value. But yeah, he's under the pump at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm saying to the point of Bryan is talking about. Think about Razor coaching at Super Rugby level. You've got about 3 months pre-season with the team. You spend about a whole 6 months together, so you get to understand the characters. He's only been coaching against these players that he has now to sort of use as part of his strategy. So yes, it is teething problems, understanding how to get the best out of that environment. And he's the kind of man that grows relationships. I think the All Blacks will be better off because now they're starting to understand each other. What at the highest of pressures and what type of characters you have, how they react to that, and how he himself within that environment, how he's going to try and inspire that. I think time will tell with the All Blacks. I think they're not too far off though.
Rather important fixture over the weekend, and I have been very critical of the Currie Cup in the past, where it fits into the local schedule, where it fits into the players' time frame, and whether there's even enough time to have a competitive Currie Cup. But geez, the old lady can dance. After the Sharks and the Lions final, what a game! It's good to see that players still kind of look at the Currie Cup and see. I mean, looking at a guy like Trevor Nyakana after the final, it meant a lot getting a trophy. That's the one aspect of it. And the other one is, speaking of the kind of redemption arc of teams and players and coaches, the Sharks, from where they were in the URC last year, in a very tough spot. At some stage, they were 1 win from 12 games. It was a dark spot for them. They have now made it 2 trophies and 2 finals. Looking at the URC going forward, they are sitting pretty. But the Currie Cup final, let's get stuck on that for a second. Bobs, tell me about that final. It was cold, it was rainy, it was not what you would expect from Joburg in September, but what a game, what a day out of the rugby, and the fans came out and supported.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for those ones who came out to Emirates Airline Park, congrats on you, because you witnessed something that was special, and that the Currie Cup has that teeth, it has sort of captured the imagination of the people, and for me, it was more for those young Lions Cubs who were experiencing something special. A bit of I guess it is an evolution. Having young coach Mzwakhe Nkosi coming in and saying, you know what, we're going to challenge our standards. We're going to challenge the teams with a young squad. We're going to make sure that we grow depth in terms of what the Lions need as a union. And they've created, I could say, a brand now that youngsters, when they look at, they say, you know what, if I want to get myself an opportunity to play at high level rugby, I must go to the Lions if I'm not getting chances at the other 3 franchises which are in the URC. Lions seems to be that option at the moment. And the only way you can make Lions that option is giving these youngsters a chance to experience and play in big games like the Currie Cup final. And they've unearthed a few talented players. I mean, Ruan Venter, how amazing was that carry? I mean, that was just brutal at its best. To see the Q1 Horns, the Nico Staines that are starting to come out, the Yonkers that are starting to get chances. Important for the Lions. I think the result will have really helped to encourage them to see themselves as that 2015 sort of Lions team that went on to 3 finals in Super Rugby. They really should have. That was a bit of a sucker moment for me. I thought that they won the game. They got that driving move. The only thing they had to do is just kick the ball out or force a mistake or something. For the Sharks, great fight. JP Peterson needs to get a mention. The way that I think he lost 4 on the bounce. He went up and he spoke to the management and said, you know what, I'm going to give the youngsters a chance, an opportunity. The Sharks got a chance to see and unearth their young players. Lorenzo Julius at outside centre looking so promising. And then you look at Raul and the forwards and all the other players who were getting chances. There's a whole lot to be excited about in South Africa in terms of which players will get a greater chance in playing in the URC, so we can create these franchises that compete not just at URC level, but even at the Heineken Cup level. But you need squads, you need depth, and the Currie Cup has become a space where now you can use it to attract that type of depth for the younger players to get a chances in playing big rugby. So for me, a very successful Currie Cup in terms of a campaign. I think it's got everyone interested, everyone wanting to win something. For the Sharks, congratulations. I know it's been hurtful for them, especially with the squads that they do have.
Can I show you something that I tried, but my boys laugh at me? Okay, can you get this?
So you're not allowed to take your clothes off. I'm telling you now.
What?
And I've warned you before.
What are you coming up?
The Trevor dance. Doesn't it look like the Trevor dance?
Is that supposed to be Trevor?
I tried it.
Gee,
Dude, I thought you were,
laughing at
you
me.
were trying to do Razor Robinson for a minute there. I had no idea. Schalk, Schalk, I'm going to maybe just jump in here on your behalf and seeing that you are actually employed. You should have corrected Gcobani Bobo that it's the Investec Champions Cup. It is no longer the Heineken Champions Cup, firstly.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Seriously. Don't let me do your work for you as well.
Thank you, Bryan.
And then,
Look,
100%.
hey, John.
It's one of those habits, old habits. Investing up
he had
just 1
Trevor
year.
Nyankane in his brain, and he was thinking, so he probably wasn't listening. And then secondly, I would absolutely love to give a shout out to Mzwi Waki Nkosi, old Cares boy, doing some phenomenal things. I actually met the chap a couple of years ago at Cares when he was coaching the first team, and a good man. And the Lions have, unfortunately, from a coaching perspective, also struggled to find their way. But for him as a young coach, very much like JP, to take his team to a final, there'll be a lot of debate, in my opinion, on that last phase of play. I sort of watched it a few times. I think there could have been a few penalties going in the Lions' favour. But again, kudos to the Sharks team. And it's also sort of, I want to say, beautiful to see there's actually Mr. Hendrickse that kicked a phenomenal kick over, was actually playing in a Lions jersey not too long ago. And a few players, that had crossed, the Drakensberg to go down to Durban, and it came back to unfortunately bite them. But, great to see what JP is doing as a coach, a guy that always brought a lot of energy, a lot of positivity, a lot of laughing, and as a young coach to come out there, have someone like John Plumtree, as a bit of a mentor to be able to doing that. So it does mean that the Currie Cup looks Renier to be in a good place. I still think that it unfortunately does need to find its place in the South African rugby context. And the fact that we, playing our international rugby in the Southern Hemisphere, yet doing our club provincial rugby in the Northern Hemisphere, it just creates an unfortunate disconnect or imbalance. So does it have the impetus that it did in the past? I think the jury is still out on that one. It was great to see that the Gautengers, the Wallabies, braving the cold, braving the weather to go out there and support what was a phenomenal game of rugby. I think from an SA rugby perspective, they do need to find a balance of where it fits in within a schedule, how we prioritize it, because to your point, the old lady sang beautifully, and it is a good platform. So has the Currie Cup now become what myself, Bobs, and Scala knew as the Vodacom Cup? Possibly, but in terms of its legacy, its history, and its tradition, should it be? I don't know. I'm still out there, man. The Currie Cup was one of the most greatest competitions to be a part of. And I'm really hoping, as much as we are entering this new phase of going forward and entering different competitions, that we don't lose something that is truly historic, truly of South African DNA because, the history and the legacy that goes with that old lady and that cup is something special.
I had a conversation with Victor Matfield after the Sharks Bulls Currie Cup semi-final, where Jordan had an opportunity from the far touchline to put the Bulls away before they went to extra time. And I said to Vic, in sports, one of the rare kind of microcosms of the universe where you have an opportunity to fire your former boss. And Jordan Hendrikse had that opportunity with that kick from 59 meters to pull at the Lions and show them, look, you shouldn't have let me go, or it could have ended differently, or whatever the case may be. It's kind of like rocking up at your ex's wedding, and it's a tough life. But Brian, I remember I went to Garsfontein in Pretoria, so I was running my prime. Hatfield Square was firing when you decided to leave the Bulls and go to Western Province.
What's Hatfield Square? I don't know that. Is it a person?
No, we're not going to go back there. No need to rehash old stories. Talk to me about playing against your former employer, that first couple of games out. Now, Jordan Hendrikse really had a big opportunity against his former boss in the Lions, and he stepped up to the plate. When you went to Western Province, that first 1 or 2 games back at Loftus, how was that?
Yeah, I went unbeaten, so it wasn't too bad, Renier.
The man is on fire.
I mean,
I
was fortunate to not lose at Loftus in a Stormers jersey. So don't mind. I did lose though in the Super Rugby final in 2010, at Orlando. But what a game that was to be a part of, and that Bulls machine in that 2009-2010 year was just phenomenal. And I think I'm extremely grateful for the time I had in Pretoria. If you ask me who I support, I'm an absolute fence sitter. Bobes and Sculler will know I started at the Lions for 21 years, had 5 great years in Pretoria, came down to Cape Town for 4. Still reside in Cape Town, so I actually don't know. I'm unfortunately a very politically incorrect person and fence sitter of the highest standard at the moment. But I think moving down, there was obviously, and Victor sort of spoke about particularly that team that we had at the Bulls. We became very much entrenched in that Bulls culture, Billa, Ismaileva, and I was so grateful for the time I had in Pretoria and the success I achieved there, what I achieved as an individual, but also what I achieved at as a team. That 07 Super Rugby final down in Durban was absolutely spectacular. The 2009 record win against the Chiefs in that final, and Loftus, when it was full back in the day, there was few stadia in the world that could even comparatively come close. It was just phenomenal. And I think, Cape Town offered me something different. I think the mixture of people, you had guys from the southern suburbs, northern suburbs, Stellenbosch, and this blend of amalgamy that was pretty special. And so really, I'm an absolute fence sitter. I really hope that rugby wins when those teams play against each other. But again, vilified, absolutely to the nth degree. So it was not an easy one. Grateful that I at least stepped up to the plate when he played the Bulls, and even in a losing Super Rugby final in 2010, I managed to score a try. So I'll take just some positives out what was a very hostile environment.
The Wings, they always just scare about the scores, trying to score.
That's what we get selected for.
Not about the match. It's like. So
they finishes.
Yeah,
it's like you on the back of a driving ball.
No, 100%. I actually had to run more than 5 meters for my tries, Bobs. Take it easy. They flop over the line, right?
But pushing. Look, Renier, the one thing with the Colin Currie Cup that was weird is firstly, well done to JP, because I think they lost the first 3 games, or 3 out of 4. And what is weird, just my general observation, is they created depth during the first phase of the Currie Cup. But when it came to the end of the Currie Cup, they started playing their big dogs. And that's actually a pity, because a lot of the players got them there. And then when they got there, they said, okay, fine, thank you for coming, but we're playing now our Springboks, or we're playing like Trevor, like Andre. They play phenomenally because they're just phenomenal rugby players. But what is in the final, what was amazing was 2 teams that, firstly, going extra time, the Sharks. I didn't think they had it in the gas tank to go back-to-back Bulls and then the Lions away from home. So that is phenomenal. And then secondly or thirdly, I would say I was expecting a very high-scoring game. First off, I didn't think there was any points scored for the first 50 minutes. But it's such an exciting game, and for me, it was. Yes, Bryan said that it's still decided what place or what role it plays within the South African environment. But it was amazing seeing the fans. It was amazing seeing the quality of rugby being played with conditions that wasn't optimal. But it was a great game to watch, and there was players that I saw that can wear the Springbok shirt and has worn the Springbok shirt before, giving that exposure. It was for me a phenomenal calling Currie Cup, and I was one of the guys that cut it because I remembered strength versus strength and now domestic league, and now it was in the beginning. I'm like, what? I don't know 90% of all the names that's playing, but it ended well.
So every week we pick the greatest ever combinations in the Springbok squad. We've done front row, we've done locks, we've done loose trio, we've done midfield, we've done scrum half, fly half. We've saved the best for last because we arguably have one of the best online with us. Mr. Gcobani Bobo, are you going to kick us off, or do you want to kick it to Scala?
I'll straight up say Bryan Habana, no doubt, takes the 11th position. It's similar to what Peter de Villiers said. I remember once when there was a time where Peter named the whole Springbok squad to play. I think we're playing against Wales, and he never mentioned number 11. And Bryan was like, sorry, coach, who's playing 11? He's like, come on, Bryan, you know it's you. Come on, Bryan, you know it's you. Bryan will be my left wing any day. That's what I'm committing to. You can look at the right wing Scala.
I'll go Cheslin. Cheslin has been just phenomenal. He can spark something out of anything.
He can do everything.
You've got on the left wing, you've got a guy that can outrun a cheetah, and on the right wing, you've got Cheslin that can sidestep anyone in a small little box. Yeah, phone booth.
Gentlemen, I want to give you two options for 50. Monty, Valileru. Unless there are any other names you want to throw in the ring.
Andre Joubert.
Sorry, was Frans Steyn thrown into the ring somewhere else?
Do you want to pick him as he was kind of on the list as an always impact player, utility back.
But Bryan, think about this too. You got Frans, Damien, and Sasha as those utility competitions.
No, I'm just asking, right? Are we, Damien's obviously a double World Cup winner. I asked the question is, where are we taking our picks from, right? So I think those first two, Billy and, I've been on the end of many try assists by both Billy and Monty, so it'll be a very difficult choice for me. I just think France, and if I take us back to 2009 and that the Tri Nations, Schalk, it was then the Tri Nations, 2009. France staying in New Zealand, those 55-meter kicks to win us that Tri Nations, and the nonchalant, take no BS attitude that France had was something impeccable. And we saw it in 2019. He brought in a really great, aged, experienced France Steyn off the bench that was versatile. So I would definitely say France is a versatility, but sure, he wouldn't be a bad start at a 15. I never got to play with Andre Joubert. So that would be a very difficult one between Willie and Monty for me, right? Who would you guys go with? Give me some time to think, because I think I've got more try assists. I've got more try assists from Billy, but I want to World Cup with Monty. So it'll be a very difficult one for me.
You know what is sad though? With Francie, we didn't see the best of him. Like we saw him in 2007, but most of his rugby was played. If I look at the games he played for racing, if you go in the highlight reel, because we went on holiday 2 years ago together, and my boys didn't know who Frans Steyn was, and I showed him some reels on YouTube. He was ridiculous. I mean, he was kicking drop goals, and from his own half, he was stepping like he does, and then he was smashing the living crap out of those Fijians. And only like Bryan can concur with this, but there was some big Fijians in the French league, and the top 14 was massive. And that Burshinki was not standing back. He was actually waiting, licking his lips, smashing those big boys. For me, he was...
I lip my lips.
He was just phenomenal.
I lip my lips. Francie doesn't have lips to lip.
Yeah. That is true. That is true.
So, okay, gentlemen, Sculler and Bobs, before we let Bryan pick, because he can't pick himself, at our team, it has to be Bryan 11, Colby 14. Pick a 15 for me, Sculler. You're on the spot.
I'll go once again for the most school players that played in the Currie Cup was Porus's, and I'll go for my Porus mate called Belinda.
Well, it's a good choice. And on that note, Mr. Bryan Habana, it's a given that you would be on the greatest ever Springbok squad with the 11 on your back. Talk to me about, if you had to pick someone, it can't be you. Who did you look up to as a youngster? Who did you play with? Another name that you would put down for, let's call him the second greatest Springbok 11 ever.
Ooh, 11 ever. Oh my, that's a difficult one. So I mean, it's someone like, so I was 12 years old in the 95 World Cup, and I think James Small, even though he was playing 14, we had Chester Williams on the wing, and Chester definitely gave new meaning to players of color, representing the Springboks. And in that 95, he was the poster boy for a reason. But I think James Small, and I don't want to say, he was 14 and put him on the 11, but he just brought something absolutely different that any Springbok wing has ever seen. And his aggression, his no BS attitude, his physicality was just phenomenal. And someone that, may soul rest in peace, wore the Springbok and everything it meant on his sleeve every time he got to represent it, and was just so incredibly proud of this country, and the passion with which he played rugby, the passion with which he wore the jersey, and those tackles on Donald Lomu. It was pretty spectacular. So as an 11, it would be very difficult. I mean, Chesman played 11. If we look at anyone, Curtly Orance's prize scoring ratio at the minute. But that all being said, I think for me, if I look across the last 30-odd years of Springbok being back in international rugby, the most least likely player to go on to become the first Springbok to score a try in the Rugby World Cup final in 2019, Makazole Mapimpi, from his extremely humble beginnings, from the type of person and unastuted, respect that he gains from his players around him. The story that Rassie tells about the jersey and only his faith being on the number, and Schalk can share more of that. He's gone on to do a job in that number 11 jersey that not only makes himself proud, but gives South Africa the hope, very much like Sia. And I think if we listen to the phenomenal Xhosa commentary of that Rugby World Cup final and that try scored by Makazole Mapimpi. Yeah, as a number 11, what he's given that jersey, the hope he brings, and to be the most least likely player to have done it, given his background, given him circumstances, and he is a constant purely because of what he brings to the side. So I'm going to go with Makazole Mapimpi, who never let the team down, and again, the fact that he became the first Springbok to ever score a try in a Rugby World Cup final, give the exact reasoning as to why.
Yeah, the problem is Bryan didn't give anyone a chance.
There was a couple of years where no one had a chance.
Yeah, so you can't. Yeah.
Sculler, that was a perfect ending. You should have cut
Just
it.
there, just
That
in the
was a
right
perfect
there.
ending, and that was a brilliant story.
Gentlemen, round table as we quickly go around. Are we united in our idea that the Boks will get the job done in Nelspruit over the weekend?
Yeah, for me, yeah, I think they will.
Color with the 2 thumbs up. And the fireworks, and that's where we're going to end it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been episode 8 of The Good, The Bad, The Rugby, South Africa. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, search GBRSA wherever you get your podcast, get involved, and join the conversation. Do you think Bryan Habana is the greatest ever Springbok left wing? Have a look, have a conversation, and chat to us. We certainly do. Bryan, thank you so much for your time. And joining, as I said, one of the best prepared and best researched podcasts in the rugby world. We really appreciate your time, mate. Have a wonderful day and go well. And we hope our paths cross again.
Cheers, Renier. Schalk, sorry we kept you out of your 10 o'clock tea time. Hope you still get to play the last 12 holes.
Oh, I'm never going to get rid of this.
Yes, he is.
No,
yes,
I'm not.
you are. Yes, you are.
I'm playing tomorrow because it's public holiday. That's why.
I reckon Schalk's got 9 holes at about 4
Yeah,
o'clock
the fates
this
are cool.
afternoon.
I was about to say there's a nice little lunch planned and then a quick 9. and then it's the links tomorrow.
100%.
I am playing paddle tonight with my boys. Talking about paddle.
I was about to say.
Happened with,
Schalk, we're
what
done.
actually happened with...
Schalk, we're done. Schalk, we're done.
What happened with Justin Marshall's eye? And
Schalk,
why
we're
did
done.
you lose?
Timing,
Timing.
timing.
Did you get a little off-field moment with Justin?
You'll have to invite me back for the 16th episode. Timing out.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Have a great day. And to you listening, it's been wonderful to have you. For us, that's it. Cheers.